Welcome. Good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Andrew Gaule. Very good to have you on this webinar where we're going to be talking about our AI investment platform. And I think this has got wider implications and wider insights as well to how AI can be used within business. So I'm going to be trying to give some examples of those as we go through this sort of session. First of all, apologies from Denis, who's my good friend and colleague who's built this. He has come down with the lurgy and he was not very well at all earlier today and might have been going off to the doctors or A&E. So that's not good. But there was also somebody else who was on a call with me earlier today as well, who was meant to be on the call, and she was also off to the doctors and A&E. So hopefully none of you come down from being on a Zoom call with me and that today. So hopefully that's okay. So good to have you here, and we're going to have time for discussion and as we go through this as well. So what are we going to be covering? We're going to be talking about AI in business and two major sort of streams in that to it. One is, can AI be used to drive efficiency, to automate things that people are normally doing within organizations? And also, we'd like to challenge and sort of say AI can be used as a driver to create a new business model. Because certainly from what Denis and I have seen in building this AI investment platform, we have a view that that's going to drive a different business model. But also with clients I'm working with at the moment in organizations, we're seeing that AI can be used to do things that were not possible before because of the cost of people or because of their being able to having the ability to do lots of data analysis. So those are the two key themes that we're going to be covering on this sort of webinar. So what's the problem and what is the investment industry in that today? And we're talking about venture capital organizations, we're talking about corporate venture capital organizations, which operate with high human intensive overheads. So whether that's managing deal sourcing, whether that's analyzing and screening thousands of pitch decks, whether that's doing weeks and months of due diligence and then managing the portfolio. And I've seen it over 20 plus years now that the organizations I've been dealing with, investment funds or corporates where I typically work, they've all been saying, oh, our minimum ticket size gone to £3 million, £5 million, $5 million, $10 million, because they just sort of say the overhead and the cost of doing these transactions just means they're moving to later stages and higher tickets. So that means that earlier businesses and the areas that Denis and I've been in Henley Business Angels, and I know some of you on the call are, early stage investors and that as well. Where are we filling that gap, and how can we fill that gap? So what I would like to do is I want to make sure that I'm going to be leaving enough time for discussion, and maybe the best way of doing that is to in the Zoom chat, if you could post some questions or post some comments and that as we go through this, and I would love to pick them up at the end because I'm presenting. I won't be able to see what you're putting in, but I want to catch those and that at the end. So if you've got insights of where your investment process is and where you feel where you've got most pain today, are your team members already using AI tools informally or formally? And could you automate part of the process? And what concerns are you having about using AI in investments or in other applications and that within your organization? So those are just some of the thoughts that Denis I had that you might want to talk about. But it's open, but suggest you pop those in the chat and you could have some interaction on the chat, but I won't be able to read those as we're going through, and I'll pick those up at the end with our sort of discussion. So where do we see AI fits within the investment journey? And we've been trialing these now over about 18 months. We're getting on for 2 years now with Denis and I've been working on this. So, by the way, this Sunday, the 30th of November, is the third birthday of GPT. So, Sam Altman pressed the go live for GPT on the 30th of November 2022. And that's when we saw the explosion and the power of Gen AI. So we're seeing AI can fit in the journey for scouting, scanning decks, scanning platforms, looking for inbound approaches where there might be appropriate deals, where they can be screening on objective criteria that fit with your investment sort of rules. So the AI could be screening for those things rather than humans scanning through pitch decks. AI can do deeper research, linked to external data sources. It can be managing the portfolio and giving understanding of what's happening within the portfolio. And it can also help the founders in that as well. So it's not just on the investment sort of side. So let's dive into those a bit more detail. So examples of where scouting can occur. If you've got your mandate and you're out there, you could be searching. The AI can be looking out at typical investment places, Crunchbase, PitchBook. It could be looking at LinkedIn for where founders are discussing where their ventures are launching. It can look at real-time data. It can look at multiple sources. So there's a lot of unstructured data out there that can be used to give an indication of which businesses will be looking for investment, or founders that you like following and have been successful in the past, where they're doing initiatives that could be appropriate in that for you. Then on the screening and selection, when you receive pitch decks, can that help with automatic scoring? Can that give objective and subjective sort of investment criteria of what you're looking for, and then giving you the information you want that fits your sort of criteria? And this was one of the first things we did with Henley Business Angels, really, is we took the dozens of pitch decks that we received. We know we're only angel network, we're relatively small, and we started trying, going back over 18 months ago with earlier versions of AI, about having them to read the pitch decks. And the objective sort of criteria we were looking for as an angel group were geographically, were they in the area of Henley, Oxford, Reading sort of area? Were they early stage? Did they have EIS, SEIS? How much were they looking to raise? What was the valuation? Because those were the sorts of objective criteria we could relatively easily look at. So Denis was the one who did a lot of that prompt engineering, using the clarification of those things. The subjective criteria are a bit more, well, is this the right sort of business? Is this the right sort of business model? Are these margins the right sort of margins that you would expect that the entrepreneur was sort of talking about? So those are a bit more sort of subjective than the straightforward yes or no sort of type area. So those are the sorts of things we looked at within the screening, and I'm going to give some more examples of those in a little while. Then can it be used to do some matching? So we then did some trialing of sort of saying, okay, now we've got these pitch decks that we think meet our criteria. We then tried those against what our sort of angels were looking for. And we tried to sort of see whether there was a correlation between what the angel investors in our group, how they matched up against the AI in the selection process. And it was found quite interesting, actually, that despite what people said what their criteria was and what they thought the criteria was of our angel group, we found that there was more variation between the humans than what there was between the AI and the humans. So we were finding that the AI was more subjective and was more, consistent in what it was looking for and what it was doing. And that's got some sense, really, because when you're an investor, an angel investor, you might skim a pitch deck, you might spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour on it, But when the AI can do the sorts of things that we were doing with it, it goes into a lot more depth and checks things in more sort of detail. So this is where some of the deeper research and that came in then. So, Denis worked on developing some background checks, so doing APIs, which is the sort of computer call out from the AI system. So when the AI looked at the pitch decks, it would come up with some questions. It would go and check Companies House against the company number of the company that pitched to see, were there any court judgments against them? Were there changes of directors? Who were the directors? And we're using AI really as a research assistant. So me as an investor, I do my Google searches and I do some validation and that on a pitch deck that I'm doing a bit more research on. But in the prompts that we built and in the database we had as well of previous ventures that we'd looked at, then we were able to scan those things and produce concise briefings and questions for the investor to ask the founders and provide feedback to the founders and that as well. So we were finding that the AI now is really quite good at being able to do some of the due diligence, being able to analyze contracts, being able to analyze things as well, like the articles of association and the legal documents that are publicly available or are available from the businesses when they moved into the next stage of due diligence and being able to, looking at the next stage of doing the investment. And also, we were able to do portfolio monitoring. So the businesses that you have invested in, you could be reviewing their revenue figures, their cash burn figures, their, where they're hiring, their board reports and sort of stuff like that, which could then provide an early warning or an early flag to where those businesses were looking to receive future investment or where there's areas of being able to focus. So to give a couple of examples that we did, Ape20 and Spacebands are two businesses that Henley Business Angels invested in. And declaring my interest, I invested in both of those businesses while I put my cash and that into those businesses. And very early on, when Denis and I were trialing this, we put their pitch decks in. And we did that sort of analysis that I've just talked about in terms of reviewing the pitch decks, being able to do some of that more market research and being able to come up with questions and insights for us as investors and for the entrepreneurs. And this is going back when it was GPT 3.5 and one of the early versions of 4. And to be honest, I was blown away. I thought, wow, I wish I'd asked that question, or that's a great insight that it's come up with. And we give an example a bit later on, or there's more content that we put on our LinkedIn. For example, Anthony Newman, who's the founder of Ape20, when we showed him the analysis and we showed him the questions and all of that, then he was really impressed and that by the sorts of insights it was able to give him. And the feedback when we showed when we did a blind test over a couple of our pitch events, where the ventures that got to the later stages of our Henley Business Angels round, we sent the pitch decks to our angels as we normally do before a pitch event, and said, well, can you have a look at these, and can you sort of see if you've got questions or whether you're interested in those. And I asked them to give me a short report back, but I didn't ask them to do any more than what they normally do when they would review the pitch decks. And then immediately I would email them back with, look, this is the report and the insights that we have come up with from using the AI analysis. And the feedback that we had from the angels was impressive, because they said it would have taken them a long time to do that research. They didn't find any faults in that within the research. And there's often a criticism or point about AI of, oh, it hallucinates and it makes things up. To be honest, from what we've seen, Denis and I working on this, when you craft the prompts effectively and when you know the limitations of AI, then there are some things it comes up with that you don't expect. But when we've gone into some of those things and we've gone and looked at the pitch deck again, in a lot of the cases, you can see there's ambiguity there that the entrepreneur has, the way they've written it or the way that the image was or sort of something like that. So we didn't find that the AI was any more hallucinating than what we assume as people looking at decks. And in a number of cases, actually, the AI came back with a report with detail that was almost hidden within the pitch deck, that when we went back and said, oh, yeah, that's it. The founder did put that sort of information in the pitch deck that we hadn't spotted when we went through for the first time. So I think it's really impressive in that there. So I suppose that what I've talked about so far is quite text orientated, research computer sort of type orientated. But what we also wanted to do was sort of say, okay, if we've got the AI has come up with, has done the report and background research, and it has come up with, cut text output, can we actually use the AI to interview the entrepreneurs in the first, in the first stage, in the next stage of the process? Because when we did the analysis and when we created our reports and built them into a secure platform, it came up with questions that we as angels could ask the entrepreneurs, or the entrepreneurs could answer in the text. But we developed an avatar to interview and interact with the entrepreneurs. So I'm not going to try this now live, because when we've tried it before, the the video system here trying to bring a video back from YouTube and being able to do this live on here just doesn't really work. So I wouldn't recommend it. But if any of you want to, with your phone, scan the QR code, that'll take you to a LinkedIn article, or when we send the deck out later, you can click on the image here, and you will be able to see the entrepreneur talking to my avatar. That it looks like me, but the questions I'm asking are the questions that the AI has done the analysis. And the interesting thing we found when we did this, and when we did it with Anthony, the AI was starting to give him advice around how can he lower his cost of customer acquisition cost? How can he increase the lifetime value of their customers? And it was able for us to then be able to capture softer information as well that weren't answered within the pitch deck. So that helped to elaborate the sort of insights that we had from the sort of system. So we do think that using AI can be more objective screening. It's got clearer rules. It can it can do that more background research as well, and we think it's a more consistent filter than maybe what limited resources of people would be in being able to sort of take that. And there was an article that I posted on LinkedIn a few days ago, which was there was a Financial Times article on Monday, which was talking about how AI is it more consistent in recruitment and in other sort of sector use. And I posted this article on LinkedIn a few days ago, reiterating what we had found as well, which had been found by other people in other sort of sectors. So a case example where I think this could be used effectively and used with bigger funds. Denis and I were with a large investment fund last week who had over 400 ventures in its portfolio that they'd already invested in. They've got access to monthly accounts, cash flow, board reports. They hold softer data as a commentary about the founders and all that as well. And they're now developing the AI to cross-reference the current and historical portfolio and that. So they're using it in that sort of case. And so, when you've got data, when you've got insights, then I think AI is really helping to enable and enrich that. So where does the changing business model come along? All that I've talked about so far is largely about being more efficient in scouting, more efficient in looking at pitch decks, more efficient in providing reports for people to interact with entrepreneurs or with founders that they've invested in. Now, what I've been talking to quite a number of corporate venture funds and larger funds around is sort of saying, they're moving to larger ticket sizes because of the cost of doing all of that stuff. But my challenge to them now is, and we had a number of corporates that we were in Cambridge with a week or so ago, and we're discussing with the likes of them where they would be doing half a dozen investments per year, typically £5 million tickets sort of size. I'm challenging them to say, look, take one of those £5 million investments and say invest 50, 100,000 initial investments into those early stage businesses. Because now with AI, as I've outlined, it can do a lot of that automated process. And if those larger later stage funds are investing alongside angels or earlier stage funds via this sort of method, then yes, they've got some feet on the ground, but previously they weren't doing that. And then the AI can monitor the sales, the margins, the customer growth, the intellectual property, the team performance. And then when those businesses have got some trouble or they need some advice or where they can be helped, like the example I said with 820 providing marketing advice, then the AI can help providing that information directly or by, like in the example I just gave about the 400 in the portfolio, if there's an issue with one of the businesses, the AI will say, oh, I've seen that before in company X 3 years ago, and John solved that problem by doing it, dun, dun, dun. The way that's done at the moment, of course, is just people having in their head that they've been around for a long time in the business and sort of stuff like that. So the AI now has got access to this information in an unstructured and structured way, can be helping in those areas. But the important thing about the business model that I think is, for, say, out of those, say, these notional 50 businesses that the fund has invested in, we know that 80% of them are going to fail, 10 or 15% of them will go on and make a reasonable exit, and 5% make an exit, right? Whatever the numbers are in your head. But we now really believe that AI will help more of those to be successful. And the ones that are successful, which of the sales are going up and their customer traction is going up, then if you've invested in the earlier stage, you can then do the follow on from the 100K to the 1 million to the 3 million to the 5 million. So my challenge to the later stage funds now is, if you don't change your business model and your other competitor funds change their business model, you will not get a look in at the £5 million stage. Because why would the entrepreneur spend a lot of their time doing a lot more pitches again and spend a lot more time going around trying to get that next round of investment if one of the earlier investors sees this is a good deal, we see the traction, and it means that they follow on. So it makes it more efficient for both sides, really, of the of that sort of case. So the implications for venture capital, CVCs, and angel groups is engaging early with ventures doesn't overload your it won't overload your investment teams. They become more efficient. They become more effective in supporting the later stages. You can collaborate more effectively. You can make better use of your existing portfolio and market data, and you can create offers that move things forward, and that within the sort of scenarios. So that's it in terms of really what I wanted to cover. Wanted to give a view about how things are going to become more efficient. Wanted to give some insights in where AI can be used more effectively and how it changes business model. And I am seeing that with other clients I'm working with. So this morning, for example, we were on with a an organization which is doing normal sort of service business, lots of people, lots of equipment, and that within their area. But by using AI to be able to monitor calls, be able to provide marketing and sales opportunities, being able to answer the phone on a Friday evening or Saturday morning and book a customer in for their for what they require, because the AI knows their phone number, knows what previous treatment they've had, what previous service they've had, knows what other data that they're bringing in from other sort of systems, can take that order and that call. And it was too expensive and too data intensive for people to do that in the past. And now AI has got the capability and that for doing that. So next steps, and just some things for you to scan here if you want to do that before I move into discussion. We're making existing, we think, making existing investment process more effective, making new business models effective. We're running pilots now with funds and angel networks to apply these ideas, because we've got to tailor the system depending on the criteria that the organizations are. What are they looking for in their ventures? So the prompts and the criteria have to be fine-tuned. And then we believe about creating this platform and that of being able to make the whole system more efficient. Denis and I are going to be running an AI strategy and implementation for business leaders program in London in the last part of January. We're fixing down the venue and the date for that now. And that's going to be more general. It's not just going to be about investment. This is going to be about how AI is changing the whole program. And we are going to be running executive programs at Henley Business School in March and June, which is really about how organizations are going to go through the AI change, how they're going to manage with AI workers and new business processes, more efficient processes,